How do you like that music, man? Don't you want to get up and dance? Well, our guest today is going to tell you about what he's doing with dancing. So don't go away anywhere because this is Lesko Live Radio. And we got lots of stuff. We're going to tell you how to double your salary, too. Right, that's right. Double your salary. Stuff that people don't know about. Or how you don't have to know how to write a grant to get a grant. We're going to talk about that with Shane right after this.
I believe that anybody in America could start their own business right on their kitchen table with little or no money. See, anything you're going to do in life is going to take a lot of work. But if you really find something you really want to do and you learn how to use the system, you'll get over any obstacle. You could start a business on your kitchen table because I'll show you unbelievable government programs that help you write a business plan, apply for a grant, get a government contract, or give you free legal, marketing, and tax advice. There are no guarantees in life, but I can guarantee that the government wants you to start a business because 64% of all the jobs in this country come from small businesses, and 73% of all businesses in this country are small enough to start on your kitchen table. So don't give up your dream. Let me show you how the government will help you start a business right on your kitchen table.
Hi, Shane, you there?
I'm here.
Good. Well, if people don't know you, Shane, if they haven't been around the last couple of weeks, you showed us some great stuff, like how to be an entrepreneur and get a green card from another country, come here and start a business. You know, that's what we covered last week. Before that, you told us how the government program will tear down your house and build you a new one, and all you have to do is stay there like 5 years. Or really, actually, the neatest thing I think you told so far is the revolving loan fund for entrepreneurs that's available in so many cities and counties and states around the country that gives low interest loans to businesses that can't get it anywhere.
Right.
So now I hear, Shane, that you were one of those guys this past week who evaluates other people's grant proposals for the government, right?
Well, I did, yes. The governor's office in Texas asked for some people to come down to Austin and grade some grant applications, and so we awarded some money this week.
And
so we're going to be talking about what that whole process was like. I think it's important for grant writers to understand what happens on the judging side also.
So what you said, can we talk a little bit on the phone, to set this up, and give the next one, Eric, the next slide, because you said you learned some interesting things about being on the other side of the table, not being only the person that writes the grant, but being the person that hands out the money, right?
Yeah. Well, what was really interesting, there's a couple things that were very interesting to me, is that on this grant, and there's different categories, but it ranged from $80,000 up to $300,000 to beautify a city. And what I found interesting, I thought a lot of people would be applying for this grant, and in each category, there's anywhere between four to eight applications. So the chances that someone would win money is pretty darn high. It's much better than the lottery. But the chances were really good, and a lot of the applications were I was kind of surprised that they were not written by professional grant writers.
They weren't.
They were not. They were written by normal people, and there's some ideas that came up, some suggestions that would have made the grading process a lot easier. Mm-hmm. For instance, it would ask a question, and instead of it helps the judge if the question is restated and the answer is right underneath it. And so this way, the judge does not have to hunt for the information to make sure that it's all there.
So you're saying that if I'm filling out a grant application, the best thing to do is first of all, copy the question from the application, put that in, and then put the answer to that application right below it. Because I guess what you're saying is you saw a lot of grant applications, and those that did that was easier to give them the money than those that didn't, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the first phase of this is that we just had to figure out if they answered the question. And then if they did answer the question, then it's who answered it best. But you'd be surprised there's a good chunk of them that didn't answer the question. We even had one application that didn't answer any of the questions.
Wow.
and so they didn't qualify for the money.
So you're saying that the competition for writing a grant may not be that great,
Well, that's right. Anywhere from everyone had 25 to 15% chance of winning this money. Because there was not a lot of people to apply for. And I think that's how it is for a lot of grants.
Wow.
That a lot of people think that grants are really complicated, and a lot of them are a lot easier than what people think are. But because people think that they're really complicated, they don't apply for the money.
Right.
And so there's a good chance that if you write the application, you answer the questions directly, you can get some money.
Wow. So also you're saying that some of these, you've seen these applications even for the big money, like what you guys, like how big was this application you had?
The category that I judged was for towns between 3,000 to 5,000. I think the money is $120,000.
$120,000. So someone could apply for $125,000, and how big was the application?
6 pages.
6 pages. Yeah. So
right,
it's
right.
not.
And it's all narrative, but really the ones who wrote down the question and would write out the answer, just make it very simple. Here's the question. Here's the answer to it. A paragraph or two. Yeah, you have a much better chance of winning. And about 6 pages was the average.
And how many pages was the average? About
6.
6. So in other words, the finished applications were only about 6 pages long.
Well, yeah, and thinking about this, they were all double spaced.
So they sound like me in English class, man. I gotta make this double.
Yeah.
Could I get 2.5 spaces? Yeah, I would make my 6 pages. Yeah. Well, so that's not heavy lifting. It sounds like to me, to do something like that.
Not at all.
Yeah, and so they have people like you that are really determining everybody's future, and you may or may not be an expert in this thing, right?
That's right. I honestly don't know a lot about landscaping, and so more that is written for the common person to read it, the better.
Wow. And how about, this is funding now, if I recall, because you showed me a link to it, for people who want to beautify their neighborhood, right? Make their neighborhood look nicer.
Right. Right.
Actually, we our guest coming on, he's got a nonprofit in town, and he has a wonderful project in town for murals. So, and making the city beautiful and nice and, whatever, and a great project. So it sounds like kind of money he could apply for because he's painting up the town.
Yeah, he might be able to. Now, this one was specific to the state where I'm at.
Right, exactly, yeah.
The Keep America Beautiful is a national program.
Right.
And most states have something like this.
Something. So in other words, this is Department of Transportation money to beautify America. I guess this is back from Lyndon Lady Bird Johnson, right?
Correct.
She was the start of all that. Yeah, another Texas lady, huh? And so the the federal Department of Transportation gives money to the states to make the cities and towns and a place around the neighborhood look better.
Yes, correct. Yes. And again, the application's not that hard. It's pretty easy, and you got people like me judging it. So
yeah,
it's worth a shot.
So then the bottom line on this is that you probably can write a grant application. It's the grant writers that are probably trying to scare the pants off you. The number 2 is that there's not as many people applying for it as you may think there are. And number 3, it could be like you only have to fill out 1 to 6 pages or whatever to hand in. But it sounds like the most important thing that you said is answer the damn questions, right?
Exactly, yes. And the way to make that clear is write out the question in your application and write the answer right below it.
Well, wonderful, Shane. You have any idea for next week yet, or are you going to wing it? We'll talk later on.
All right, we'll do next week in probably economic development.
Okay. Oh, economic development, right. Well, that everybody wants to know that. Everybody wants to start something somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Well, wonderful. And don't forget the iGrantApp.com. See Wayne, Shane's app, it's only like $1.50 or what is it now? I know you have sales
I think it's
on.
$1.99.
$1.99. Okay. iGrantApp.com. Thanks, Shane. Take care.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for tuning in to Lesko Free Radio. I hope you enjoy this show because I enjoy doing it. And if you want to learn how to start using these programs, listen, I set up a free webpage called UncleLesko.com. You can go there right now and download the 5 best grants just for your state. So that's UncleLesko.com. Go there now, get the 5 best grants for your state, and start taking advantage of the stuff now. You know why? Because it's free. Also, we're going to take your calls later on the show and answer your questions. We'll answer anything. Man, I could show you a source of money and free help to do almost anything you want to do in life. So what you do is you call 202-643-9006. That's 202-643-9006. And if you don't get through for some reason or the show time runs out, you can always send an email. Boom, did I say that right? Email me at letsgofreeradio@gmail.com. That's letsgofreeradio@gmail.com. So we want to answer your questions. So call or write. Oh, please. Okay, so right now, if you want to call him with a question, hold on for a little bit. We're going to do this great interview now. I mean, this is Masi Mutafa. Great name. And he's with Words, Beats, and Lives. Could you give his a website, Eric, and show that on the screen? I just ran into that. I mean, I knew of his work because I run into it all the time living in Washington, D.C. But the first time I really read your website and got into it, and he does terrific work, guys. I mean, anybody, if you're looking to do something in your neighborhood, you want to change the life of yourself or the people around you or whatever, you have an idea, you have a dream that you always wanted to do, and not sure how to do it or whatever. Mossy did this. I mean, he did this right from college. I mean, like 12 years ago, you were still in college. Yeah. Mossy was in college, and you did a hip-hop conference. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that how it all started in college, as a hip-hop conference?
I mean, it actually started my freshman year. One of the things I often encourage people to do is to not just have a dream, but find people who share that dream. And so my freshman year, I met the former president of the Black Student Union. And one of the things he told me was that the only thing he wished he had done as BSU president was to create a world-class hip-hop conference. So 3 years later, when I became the president of the Black Student Union, I decided to do the one thing my mentor said he hadn't done. And one of the things about that fact is that it wasn't my original idea, but I took someone else's aspiration and advanced it and found other people that agreed enough with it as a vision to work towards it.
Well, it's funny. The guys last week were sort of like that, too. We said nonprofits. I don't know if you saw the show, but it seemed like getting together with somebody else who could share that vision. And so how did this, I mean, now you have out of a reading, so he started in his dorm room, I guess, as a president of the group on campus, and now he's got like 22 interns, 55 volunteers, and here's another thing, 170 monthly givers. Man, somebody giving him money, and he's got a donors list that will knock your socks off if you go on the website. And I wonder how he did all this. But first, what do you guys do? What are you guys doing for people?
So we're a hip-hop nonprofit. We talk about teaching, convening, and presenting hip-hop. So the teaching is running...
Now, presenting... See, I don't know much about hip-hop. So when you say teaching and presenting hip-hop, I mean, is that like a religion? Is that like a philosophy?
So when we talk about teaching, that's running after-school programs. So we teach literally the core elements of hip-hop, from engineering to DJing to graffiti to breakdancing to MCing to young people ages 5 to 23 in 3 different communities here in the District of Columbia.
So they're like skills. I mean,
exactly.
They're arts, they're broadcasting.
We talk specifically about skill set mastery, employability, and the pursuit of a post-secondary education. And that's part of our bias, having come out of a college environment. We want to encourage young people to go to college because for me, part of why starting a hip-hop based organization made sense for me as an individual is hip-hop is the reason I went to college.
Why?
I'd actually been accepted to the University of Maryland after I graduated from Largo High School right here in Prince George's County. I
mean, you want to get a hip-hop degree or what?
No. I got accepted to college, but I didn't want to go to college because I actually didn't really enjoy high school. So I thought that college was like high school except you live there.
Yeah, right.
But then I got invited to sit in on a class, African American Studies 202, Blacks in Popular Culture, where they were talking about a book called Black Noise by an author named Dr. Trisha Rose. And that was the first time in my entire life where I was sitting in a classroom and people were talking about things that actually mattered to me.
Yeah.
Not because I
Inside.
was so into rap music, but because I spent most of my summers as a child going to New York. And her book is really about the soundscape of hip hop, literally the sounds of cars and trains and people. And I remembered that from my childhood. So the idea of creating that kind of moment of change for a young person outside of a classroom was what we intended to do with Creating Words, Beats, and Life. Is to say, like, the only reason why I went to college because I went and sat in on that class. I had my letter of admission. I was not going until I realized that what I could do in college was study things I was actually interested in.
Yeah.
And so for us, teaching the elements of hip hop is to not just say, well, you can get a job doing this, but to say you can get a degree studying the history of this. Most of our young people, their first time on a college campus is not as a student. They go with our teachers because we still do workshops on college campuses. So they go as teaching assistants. So their first time on a college campus is actually as a teacher. Exactly.
So you got this 15-year-old as a teacher? Wow.
Exactly. And so how does that impact self-esteem?
Yeah.
How does that impact aspiration? So there are young people that we worked with who come from neighborhoods that have daunting statistics, who when we first met them, were aspiring to live up to those statistics, who are today in college.
Wow.
And that's amazing. Like one of the things we do now is we count the number of kids who we worked with who are now graduating from college, because we've been doing this for 11 years as of January. And we've worked with hundreds of kids. We have 250 young people enrolled in our program today. But teaching, that's the foundation of what we do, teaching the core elements of hip-hop to promote skill set mastery, employability in the pursuit of a post-secondary education. Convening, we bring organizations like us, artists, activists, and scholars together, actually right across the street at Howard University, for an event called Remixing the Art of Social Change, a hip-hop approach, where we ask people who agree enough about hip-hop and community transformation to say, well, how can we do this work even better? How can I learn from what you do to improve what I do? And then the last thing is presenting. So that's concerts, that's murals,
music,
that's all
music.
that.
Well, as you say that, I mean, it seems to me, I was probably like you. I mean, I don't know what I was going to learn in college. I just wanted to get out and do stuff in life, and I wasn't a good student at the time. But when you talk about hip-hop, I think of my own stuff, because what I was good at school was acting crazy, I'd get into class and you get me to the chalkboard and I could get everybody laughing behind me. But I was a pain in the ass. I thought my middle name was Sit Down. Sit down, Lesko. Yeah. But so it's like this, something that a young person is into, you're able to develop that, not only a career, but an interest to how you can develop your mind, develop your heart, develop, your community. Right. Yeah. With an interest.
And I can totally relate to your school experience. I mean, they actually created detention at my elementary school for me. Because I was getting suspended so much, they said, we can't suspend you anymore. You're actually just going to have to be in detention. And so that's part of what, growing up made me not excited about school.
Exactly.
It's like, this is a place where my creativity, where my intellect is stifled. So the idea that that's happening for a ton of young people, how can we change that?
Right.
And one of the answers for some people is to change the schools. And I'm not that person, because that's a huge fight. But what we can do is create alternative learning environments. So the radio can be an alternative learning environment, a recreation center, a church, a library is a traditional learning environment, but we're teaching the arts at the Martin Luther King Library right downtown. So it's about creating partnerships that make sense. And one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about your last guest was this idea of being on the other side of looking for money. Because I think that you're talking to me about chasing a dream, but I think one of the things that was instrumental for me was actually being invited to sit on a grant review panel to see what it is that people, how the Kennedy Center explained what they were going to do with the money, with their extensive development.
So you were
department.
reading application from the Kennedy Center?
Yeah, because I got a chance to sit on a grant review panel for the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and most city or statewide humanities councils have opportunities for people from the public to come and sit and review grants.
Oh, that's terrific. So if you're in the arts, then get your name in there, so maybe be chosen to do this.
And in DC, it's not just the arts. Even youth development organizations, they do calls for people to come in and review the grants.
See. Well, it is. Did you have a nonprofit in mind when you were in college yet, or you just had no idea where the hell you're going to go with this?
I had no idea where I was going.
Well, let's show people a little bit what you're doing.
Sure.
One project I don't know, you probably know the thing, Exit the Gift Shop. You see that? One of my favorite movies. Did you see that? Yeah. And so you do a lot with hip hop drawing and all this. But the mural project. Why don't you run this video, Eric, on the murals, what they're doing. And this is, I see it all over town. It's wonderful stuff they do. And these are all kids doing this stuff.
My name is Dominic Painter, also go by DJ True in the DC area, and I'm with Murals DC and working with Words Beats and Life this summer in 2012. Today, during the Murals DC bike tour, we were able to go around to the Shaw neighborhoods, Columbia Heights, and Adams Morgan predominantly to show people work that has been done by everybody that's been involved, a great deal of the artists that have been involved in the Murals DC project.
It's a piece we did in our inaugural year back in 2008, along with probably DC's most well-known and respected muralist, Byron G. Peck, and his youth organization, City Art.
Well, bike from Anacostia to Bike Space in Mount Vernon Square. Definitely showing how DC is changing. The murals tell the history of the city, so it's kind of like an open book. It's kind of like walking through the story and seeing it in art form. So it's really, really cool.
I mean, it just sort of emerged from the wall. I really like to meet the artist because I can see that he really feels for DC.
What I liked about this one also is that I've seen different murals that we didn't see the first time around, and just riding my bike typically through DC, seeing more so than I have before. So that's also good.
It gets you to slow down and look at a different perspective of DC. If you drive by and you see some color and that's it.
Right.
Stop and see, get the history behind it, the community, a feel for the community.
I liked how we broke it down into small groups, went out in different waves. So that was nice because we were all able to squeeze into small areas like in different alleyways, and so that was nice and small cultural feel. But yeah, definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and everybody out for discovering something new.
See, now Shane's grant should be good for this that he was talking about. I mean, that's just wonderful stuff. I mean, so does this come out of your group or your head, or you stealing again from everybody else?
Well, one of the great things about this video is the guy who starts off in that video doing the tour, Dominic Painter. He's actually the person that inspired me to create a nonprofit, because he actually came the second year of the hip hop conference we hosted at the University of Maryland and brought his organization, the Midnight Forum. And he said, yeah, I thought he was actually coming as a record studio. And he said, no, it's a hip hop nonprofit. And I said, what is a hip hop nonprofit? And then he started to tell me about the work. And so again, I actually did borrow. And this program, Murals DC, is a public-private partnership. It's actually officially an initiative of the Department of Public Works that does graffiti removal. And the DC Commission.
But you're putting it on, huh?
but what they want to do is replace illegal graffiti with commissioned work.
Yeah.
But they partner with the DC Commission, and this specific video is an innovation that we added, which was to add a bicycle tour of the murals. And we partnered with a local bike shop. So that you've got two government entities, a nonprofit entity, and a local business all working together to build community around public art. And in this case, we actually did two tours and had 350 people come out.
350 people.
It was crazy. Like, that was my first time on the first one we did was my first time on a bike tour. So we relied on the expertise of the shop. And now we're actually working to plan 6 tours this summer and looking to do multiple in the fall for the local colleges and universities. So when all these new freshmen come to the local colleges, we'll take them on a tour of the public art.
From the college to... Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things that does for us is let college students know that we exist, potential future interns, but also get more people invested in the creation and the maintenance of public art.
Now, okay, so for that, you want to do work with the colleges and everything in the fall. will you try to raise special funds just for that, or what?
So the tour actually doesn't cost us any
okay,
money, but
yeah.
what we want to do with the tour, and we want to keep it, it's actually a free tour, which is why so many
Right.
people went. But what we want to do is actually use that tour to raise money because we are a nonprofit. So we're actually building a section of our website. So at the end of that tour, you can pull out your smartphone
see.
and make a
I
$10
see.
donation to commission new work.
I see.
So that if we have, 1,000 people go on a
Right.
tour and every person gives
$10
somewhere
a
between
piece,
10,
right?
yeah, and this comes directly out of the experience you were talking about, that list of 184
Right.
Monthly givers.
yeah.
Is a brand new reality for
Really?
us, because even though we're 11 years old, 99% of those people were actually recruited between April and right now.
So, in other words, talk about the fundraising side. You can't do anything unless you raise goddamn money. Right?
Exactly.
And no matter how good, don't you get pissed off because you're doing good work, you're helping the community, and you have to beg, borrow, and steal for money to do it?
It's funny. You would think that actually would be my position, but I kind of feel the opposite, because
Really?
when I first created Words, Beats, and Life, I actually, like a lot of people, thought, well, there's tons of federal grants and grants out
right.
there. So all I did in our first year was apply for those $100,000 grants, with no program, no track record, no experience, nothing but a degree in my experience in college. And the truth is, if I had gotten that money then, I actually don't know what Words, Beats, and Life would be today. But having to do that and fail, and then making our first real money that we generated, me going around to people I knew from college and asking them to give me $100 a person.
No
and so
kidding.
the first $12,000 we
So you
raised.
failed at everything you thought would work.
Exactly.
Right. And then that made you smart enough to go try something
do something
that
different.
will work.
Right. And the thing about that is that getting individuals to invest, and this is one of the luxuries of being a nonprofit, is that when individuals invested, they not only invested their time, then they also put sweat equity into the organization. So then we went back again, kind of leaning on that college experience, and sought out contracts to be able to do some of the work that we were doing.
Contracts.
And then once we had
What do you mean,
contracts,
contracts?
so contracts to be able to present. So one of the things we do is we still do gallery shows, concerts, workshops.
So you take your artwork and stuff like that.
and people pay us to do that.
So you have a revenue stream.
Exactly.
Right? Why don't you put up the list of funders too that I have there? I think it's number 9, Eric. So you found out how to get contracts before you started getting the big nonprofits too.
So first we got the individuals, then we got the contracts, then I went back to the foundations.
I see.
And then we began to get foundation money, and now it's foundations, government, individual.
Yeah. So
all
this
that
is
good
this
stuff.
list you have on your website. I mean, all kinds of people. The
Yeah.
government, big time foundations, and everything. But it's learning to crawl first. I mean, it's too hard to fight that system just out of college and not a track record.
And one of the blessings of that, right, is that when I first started Words, Beats, and Life, I had kind of one of those catch-all brochures, those 3-panel brochures that everyone has. And I went and met with 2 major funders here in the city, and I was like, I'd like for you to fund this work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's not happening yet, but it's written here, and I have this experience in college. And actually, both of them told me, never show this to anyone again.
Wow.
And I said, why? And they said, how much money do you have? And I said, none. And they said, never show this to anyone again, because no one's going to believe you can do it. And so one of the reason why I said that's a blessing is because then 7 years later, I was able to go back to both of those people and show them not only that we were doing everything that was in that brochure, but then some. And that actually led both of them to become larger investors in our work.
Wow.
People often want to invest in what they know works.
Yeah.
Or what
they're
they've
playing
seen
with
work.
somebody else's money, so
Exactly.
they have to be more careful.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I also still think, even with all that said, I think there's tons of opportunities for people to go about seeking grant funding, either as a nonprofit or even as individuals. There's fiscal sponsors. Funding your vision is pivotal. The question is, what's the first step? And usually people want to see that you have some skin in the game. So if you can convince the people that are in your immediate social network to invest in a thing, it becomes much easier to ask somebody else to invest.
Well, would
their
that
money.
be, I mean, like the crowdfunding thing that's out now.
Yeah.
So maybe you start with putting something on a crowdfunding
Exactly.
site, get $100 from, a couple dozen people, and now you have a little pot. You show you're able to do this, and then you go after this bigger money.
Getting a lot of people to give a little is a lot easier. It takes more work, but it's easier than convincing a few people to give a lot.
Yeah.
And it's also healthier for your business or your venture to have lots of sources. Because one of the reasons that we were motivated to create the individual giving campaign is because too much of our money was coming from too few people. So that if 2 or 3 people decided they don't want Words, Beats, and Life to exist
you're
anymore,
SOL, man.
we're gone. Whereas now there's a donor base.
Yeah.
There's 180 some odd people, and our goal is to actually double that in 2013.
Wow.
And then at the end of 2013, ask all of those people to recruit 2 people. You know, so that what we do is get them invested. Just a thank you. A thank you.
I'm sorry, my head's stuck in commerce here. You're serving the world. I'm
sure
sorry.
they'd like a commission, though. We send them a T-shirt. Actually, that is one of the things we do. We give them a
Really?
T-shirt that says $1 in a dream, and only people who are monthly donors get that. So we build
Right.
value in being a philanthropist,
Right, yeah.
and then they actually get free admission to all of our events. So they do get something out of it. It's just not a commission.
Right.
It's a thank you.
You know what's interesting to me is that I was looking at your site, and man, you do some great dance. I saw you break dancing too, in a little bit of one of them. You still got the moves. But show the next video here. Now, this video, let me set it up a little bit. It looks like it's people from your current class, because people in school that learn break dancing and things like that. And then also I found a person who was a graduate of a few years ago. So we have a current student and a graduate break dancing from your site here. You got it? See, old guys like me can do this too, man.
That was actually an example of a contract where somebody was doing an event and they asked us to bring out some of our young people and some of our adults to perform. And that's actually one of the great things about hip hop, is that we can create venues for young people and adults to perform together.
Wow.
Just like what I said, when a master level teacher goes to a
Right.
college campus, he takes an apprentice student with him. The same thing happens when we do a performance. All of the events we do are opportunities for the students who we're teaching to be able to also be a part of the presenting. Because that's
Now,
about that.
So that is like a business section.
Mm-hmm.
So is that difficult in fitting into a nonprofit, or there's ways to do that?
No, it's actually really easy, because the thing about revenue generation for a nonprofit is not that you can't generate revenue. It just has to be in line with your mission. And so if our mission is teaching, convening, and presenting, doing those events is part of teaching, and it's also a part of presenting.
Well, that's what I believe about nonprofits, man. You should use capitalism, man. Have some stuff to sell, whether it's service or whatever, because that's how we give money away.
I would have on one of our T-shirts, except I was asked to wear business casual, because we have hoodies and T-shirts and all
I got
kinds
a
of stuff.
copy of that. I don't know what business casual is. To me, everything is question marks. Yeah, that's Jeremy. I mean, he wants to up the level of. Now that was interesting, the business casual. But so what you're saying, that 12 years ago, as a college kid, you had no idea how to start a nonprofit. The only thing in life you were interested in is hip hop. That got you in school, because you wouldn't have gotten anything if you couldn't do something with hip hop.
That's true.
And now after that, you graduate from college and you build a whole entire life around what was your dream as a 15-year-old.
I mean, what to be honest, what it was about was saying that experience that I had was kind of by chance.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create something that would intentionally create those experiences for
I
young
see.
people. So most of the things that I had to wait to get to college, to get a budget, to be able to do, our students can now do while they're in high school or middle school or elementary school. So that ideally they should have that kind of spark that happened for me in college well in advance of that. So that means that they should, have bigger dreams and actually achieve bigger goals.
Yeah. So instead of waiting for you by accident at 18 to find something you're interested in and could learn more about and stretch your mind and your body and your heart and everything else, you're catching kids earlier to do that. To be able to do that in life. I mean, that's why it's just wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you.
What is, what's next? You're just going to have 5,000 donors or what?
I mean, the donors is a part of it, but one of the things we're really interested in is helping organizations that are in other parts of the country be able to do this same kind of work.
Eric, I hear some, what's that? That's sorry. That's our guy.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
But no, so the event I talked about that happens at Howard, remixing the artist social change, the hip hop approach. Like one of the things I'm really interested in is sharing promising practices, because I'm not interested
Sharing
promising practices, good ways to do things. So
I
like,
see.
what's the best way to run an internet radio show? What's the best way to start a
We're still
nonprofit?
figuring that out.
But there are people who you can
Yeah.
point to who are
Yeah.
experts in that field. So we invite them to come in and share how they did it. Just what you're doing with me.
Right.
But doing this specifically with people that do hip hop related things, whether that's scholars, whether that's artists, whether that's activists. How do you develop a citywide mural tour? Like we've done it now.
Yeah, right,
So we
exactly.
can share at least one example of what's been successful. So that the teaching that we host in Washington D.C., we've also hosted in San Francisco and in Chicago. And so I'm really interested not in expanding Words, Beats, and Life, but sharing what we've learned and bringing together the people who are doing things that we can learn from, so that as a field, as a community, we can actually do work that impacts more people.
So the main project or what is like an after school program?
Yeah, that's the largest part of what
Yeah,
we do.
that's the largest
It's called the Words, Beats, and Life Academy.
That's the Words, Beats, and Life. And I guess that's what you knew about, right? So that's an after-school program. And so all the dancing and the academy dancers and things like that, that's a spin-off to educate and do all these other things all around hip-hop. What is... Do you have a 60-second to tell me the philosophy of hip-hop? I mean, again, I'm naive or whatever, stupid or too suburban or whatever to understand, like, the basic philosophy, why it makes it important to your heart and soul.
I mean, I think that the answer to that question is going to be different with every person you
Yeah.
ask. So, for example, the music you were playing at the very beginning of the show, like that had a specific kind of feeling and aesthetic and message to it. But like for someone like me, hip hop really revolves around a set of principles: love, peace, unity, and having fun. Like these are actually principles that were codified by hip hop's founder, the founding DJ within hip hop. His name was Africa Bambaataa. He created an organization, hip hop's first organization, called the Zulu Nation. And those were the organizing principles: love, peace, unity, and having fun. Hip hop has a set of artistic elements, DJing, graffiti, breakdancing, and MCing that have evolved over time. But a lot of people boil all that down to hip hop is a kind of ingenuity, making something out of nothing. So whether that was kids in the South Bronx or throughout New York who had defunded arts programs, who decided to take art to the streets or take dance to the streets or take samples from their parents' records, so that it kind of depends on who you talk to. For me, hip hop is a transformational vehicle, whether that is through telling your story into a microphone, whether that is through expressing yourself on a wall or in a book. But there's also going to be people who are just detractors and say, well, it's also just drug dealing and spinning rims and da-da-da. But the problem is that it is that.
About Catholicism too.
but like for me, I always go back to a quote by an artist named Andre 3000. He said, I met a critic and made her mess her drawers. She said she thought hip hop was only guns and alcohol. I said, oh, hell no. But yet it's that too.
Yeah.
You can't discriminate because you don't read a book or two. And so this idea that hip hop is the beautiful and it is the ugly. It is the the thing that feeds your soul and the thing that makes you sick. It is life. Like life isn't just beautiful. It actually is ugly. And so the fact that we're
it's
a part of an artistic community that doesn't just celebrate life's beauty but lifts up life's ugliness. That only becomes a problem when people who don't necessarily live in ugly conditions and circumstances replicate those in beautiful places. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, I think what I hear when you say that is, there's good, bad, everything. Any group, anybody, like I said, the Catholic Church, which I grew up in, there's a lot of funky stuff going on there that nobody wants to talk about either, or shouldn't. And so, but the basic principles is how to live a more fruitful life, and I think that's what I hear about what you're talking about, the philosophy of hip hop. And this speaks to you because of your culture, whatever, to do that. The same way if I was a white Irish kid out in the suburbs, I'd hear the Catholic preach say stuff like that too, but in their language, and so, and that's why if you have a way to get through this shit better than me, I want to know about it.
One of the things that's really amazing though is like we're actually getting ready to do a screening of a film about hip hop in Mongolia. Hip hop is
hip hop in Mongolia.
And one of they interviewed a community elder who said like when he looked at hip hop, he said, "I don't know why they say it came from America. It had to have come from
I see.
Mongolia."
Wow. See,
which
that's-
is
I
you know,
understand.
but it's kind of crazy. But the point is that he's saying that we identify
You're
with
biased.
it. Yeah. But he's saying that we identify with it, and that's one of the things that to me is most beautiful. So, like for example, my organization annually goes to Kampala, Uganda, which is the capital city of Uganda, and we do master level classes in b-boying and emceeing with folks who are part of hip hop organizations there, who are and throughout the continent, who are working to not just replicate what's happening in America, but to tell their own story. Because I think what people identify with is freedom of expression. We're actually getting ready to publish an article in our journal about a graffiti writer who was jailed in Burma. For doing graffiti, because it's a form of expression that the state doesn't sanction. And I think that that's truly what the power is. It is the freedom to say and show and express how you feel. That's what people identify with.
See, to me, I just came down from...
It's like your shirt. It's like your jacket with the
exactly.
question mark. It's it's that ability to just be who you are.
This is me inside.
Yeah.
The Ai Weiwei exhibit, the Chinese dissident artist that's down. I mean, he's fighting the same thing, so it's all wonderful. Do you have time to hang around for a while?
Sure.
Do we have any calls yet? Or we got them? No, but yeah, we had a lot of calls. We'll call back. We'll do some other stuff until then. Let's go. Let's do this White House thing. Boy, I don't know if people really... See, the White House has created this big database. People want to go to college. You have kids looking for college. Well, they have a great database. It's on the White House website now. That it's called the College Scorecard. We got that there, Eric. There it is. So if you go to whitehouse.gov... and you look on the front page for College Scorecard. Now, show them the other slide, Eric, and you'll see. Now, I did that, and I went through, and this is the kind of information it has for all the colleges and universities. So you could see, like, I compared Montgomery Community College with the University of Phoenix. Man, I hate these for-profit guys. Man, they charge it so much for so little, man. I don't know how the hell they get away with it. Yeah, I know how, because they sell like heck. They sell better than I can. So here's you could compare. See, like for Montgomery College, the typical cost is I can't. My eyes are too far away from that. Is that 5,000 or 3,000? 5,000. Okay, so that's a year. It's a whole year. Everything 5,571. Okay, now if you go to University of Phoenix, it's 21,000. Man, that's like 4 times, that you're going to be paying. So that's why you got to be careful of higher education. I think that's the next bubble that's going to burst in our country. Okay, and the graduation rate, well, they're about the same. This is a community college. That's not bad. The default rate. So see what they're doing. See, if you go to community college, you're probably not going to have student loans because it's too cheap for student loans. You don't need them. But so that's why they have no default rate. University of Phoenix, 26% default rate. That's amazing. So now the average borrowing cost, you see, you're paying $63, for the next 30 years of your life versus, it's almost, double or 3 times that, $135. So that's why you could go and pick out the colleges you're interested in and do this kind of analysis. Soon they're going to have on that database is information about their graduates. So that's going to be also neat too. So that's at whitehouse.gov and go to College Scoreboard. Okay, next slide, Eric. That's good. This is something, and this may be interesting for you guys at the hip hop artists all want their own website. Actually, if you say your business or nonprofit or anything, this is actually run by Google in every state. You just put in gybo.com, and they'll set up there. You get 3 free web pages. You get a mobile website. You get custom domain name. You want Hip Hop Heaven or whatever the heck you want to do. And you get web hosting for a year. Now, the only problem, after a year, they're going to charge you.
Of course.
But most things I do don't last a year. So if you're interested in starting a venture or something, man, just try this for a year. If it works out, then you take the name and go somewhere else with it or something. You don't like what they build. But it's a great way to do it. Like they say, in an hour and a half, you'll be all 60 minutes. You'll be all set with your website because they have templates and everything. You just plug it in and you're ready to go, man. So that sounds like a fun deal. Okay, Eric, let's go down. We have a call. Anybody calling yet? No. See, they're all calling early. Pardon me?
The number's not on the screen.
Okay. Because that's I forget what the number is. Okay, here it is, 301-643-9006. 301-643-9006. 301. How do we do this in hip hop? 30. Come on, you must be. How do you do this in hip hop? How do you say that? See,
It's the same way.
I did some raps in my time. I'll have to show you. 301-643-9006. Okay, but here's another opportunity, and I was talking to Mazi earlier that his mother is a government contractor, and we're saying, how much, you make a lot of money working for the government, and that's what people don't realize. Let's get to the next slide for government jobs number one. That the government salary. Okay, here's the salaries in the last 10 years or so. That in the federal civilian workforce, this is military. Okay, the average salary now is $83,000, versus $51,000 in the private sector. Okay, now that's just salary. Okay, show the next slide, Eric, because this is now salary and total compensation, all the benefits. See, you can't get better benefits anywhere in the world now, except you're working for the government. Now look at that, almost, you're making twice as much money as people in the private industry having a government job, and everybody, makes fun out of government workers. Man, they're raking it in. It's double. Now the next graph will show you maybe a little better. This is the average compensation. You see how that when you add the two things together, because of the benefits, which is the green part, the basic salary is purple, and that's pretty close. But then when you add on the benefits, that's why it's making double. Put the next one up there, Eric, and you'll see. This is what's happening. We're still doing like 100 to 200,000 government people a year hired, no matter what the heck they do in sequester. All this is just theater to me. The government ain't going nowhere. And even in state and local governments, they cut down, but they're going to be hiring $200,000 people a year at the state and local levels. That's going to be coming back. All this scare now. You got to look longer term. You're going to work for somebody for a long time. You got to look longer. More importantly, the government is going to be socked with retirements. And all us baby boomers, we're getting out. We're quitting work, man. I'm not, but those in the government are. And so that's what's happening. Like just in the last year, retirement, people who left and retired from the government went up like 25%. So they got to refill that. And here are the demographics, what's happening in our society. Old farts like me, we're growing, man. It's the young parts. If we don't change our immigration policy, but that becomes a benefit for younger people because we're all retiring. And so now, when you look at jobs right now in our country, there's like 5 people looking for work for every job that's available. And if you're looking for a job, that's real. But by 2018, because of the demographics, we're going to have 50 million more job openings than we'll have people looking for jobs. That's 50 million more. Here, I just did an interview with a person who wrote this book on how to get a top-paying federal job. Watch this interview. You learn about, double your salary working for the feds or the state and local. I know you know this, Lily Whiteman. And Lily, you have a great book I found out about, because it's probably one of the newest books that are out now on getting a federal job.
Yeah, the second edition just came out last summer, so it was pretty new.
Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of new research or anything for a second edition?
Well, I did update it. It's the government is a moving target.
Right.
Federal hiring is a moving target.
Right.
The internet changes things, rules change. So yeah, I did do a lot of updating and incorporated a lot of new tips that I learned as I helped more people.
Well, you've been at the government game for a long time, huh?
Yeah, I've worked for the federal government for over 20 years.
Wow.
And I
started out at 12? Is that it? Yeah.
Yes, I did, actually. And started out at EPA. And since then, I've worked at 5 agencies.
Wow.
So I saw that even though the government is the nation's largest employer, there was no book about how to get a federal job and how to move up in the system by somebody who's actually a current federal employee. So I saw that niche and I wanted to fill it.
So this is all about, I mean, you mentioned earlier that the government hires how many people a year?
The government hires typically more than 200,000 people every year all across the U.S.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, and good times, bad times. I mean, I've been studying the government for 30 years, and I've never seen it shrink.
That's true. Even under the Reagan administration, it didn't shrink.
Saying, Lesko, you're going out of business. No, they cut out the 800 numbers, but they still grew the program.
Absolutely, and there's a huge retirement wave going on in the government now, and I see it personally. Just people retiring because of the baby boom, and the government is really aware that it needs to backfill for those people.
Right.
So
no, I mean, I would think this is going to be the biggest hiring boom, in our country. Nobody else is hiring.
Right.
And all these people are going to retire, and the government needs folks. So if you're looking for a job, I think this is the greatest opportunity we have.
There is always a "we're hiring" sign on the government's front door.
And what's the key? Where would somebody start? I mean, you look at a book that's maybe daunting a little bit, but you read, you Google getting a government job, and you'll have 5,000, 50 million people telling you they could help. Do you need that stuff, or is there...
Actually, I think you need that book.
Okay, good. So we need this book. Don't Google, use the book.
But on top of that, USAjobs.gov is the federal government's main hiring portal, but not all jobs are on that. It's a myth that everything's on there.
USAjobs.gov. Okay, USAjobs.gov. Okay, good.
For example, as I was saying about the backfilling, because of that, federal agencies have been starting new internship programs, well-paying internships, not volunteer.
You could make like 30, 40 grand as an intern.
Absolutely. All over the country, from laboratories to museums to parks to offices to research centers.
Would this be if someone lost their job and want to start a new career and maybe be an intern at this kind of...
I know people who've done that. I work with a New York City police officer who's tired of getting shot at, and he got a job as a policy wonk for the government through an internship. So that was mid-career. Wow. And these internships are not on USAjobs.gov. You've got to go to the individual websites of the agencies to find them. And if you go to firstgov.gov, you'll get an inventory of all the federal agencies that exist. And
firstgov.gov.
And they all have their own career.
So if I was interested in the outdoors or something, I'd go Department of Interior or Agriculture and look for their internships.
Absolutely.
Right? And I don't have to be a 22-year-old kid in college.
No, actually.
And I can be making decent money.
Absolutely. Why be flipping burgers when you can be making good money? Right. When you could be a power broker.
And have a hell of a retirement plan.
Absolutely. So the statistics are that the federal government is hiring more mid-career people than it has ever has before. Because of that retirement wave, the executives are bowing out. So it's not only young kids, it's people of all levels.
So you can be a 45-year-old white guy.
Right, absolutely. And it's a myth that you have to know somebody to get a federal job. People think it's all about nepotism, and it's really not. Most of the jobs I've gotten, I didn't know anybody.
You even wrote the book and you still don't know anybody.
Yeah, well, government job, people miss it. Well, Mozzie, it's just wonderful to hear how you started all this and the work that you're going, and I'm going around the city seeing your work all the time, and I appreciate that you are doing what you're doing and could show other people how to do that. Now, for people to help you out, you're always looking for help or volunteers
always.
Little money. It's WBLINC.org, right? WBL, which stands for Words, Beats, and Life, right? WBL, INC, like incorporated?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're a corporation.
And then .org, though. So WBLINC.org. See all the great stuff they're doing. They could use help, I guess, even on volunteers or a little cash or keep on what's going on. And what I see, particularly if you're interested in culture and what's going on in our, what's going on in our country, you have to be interested in this kind of stuff.
Agreed. And a great way to keep up with what we're doing is to follow us on Twitter, which is our Twitter is just our name, Words Beats Life.
Words Beats Life. So Twitter, At Words Beats Life. Now, I have two other. I was reading the paper in bed this morning, and the two things that caught my eye. Here's the first one. See, this is how I write off reading in bed. Now, this is. There's a book out by the lady from Facebook, the CEO of Facebook, this woman. She has a book out now about how women should be more aggressive and all this kind of stuff. So, well, she's a millionaire, so it's I don't know if it talks to a lot of us, but there's some good stuff. But one thing she said that really interests me, as she points out, and this is what's in the yellow, the cost of daycare for 2 children is greater than the annual median rent payment in every state in the country. So just to have daycare for 2 kids is the same price as a rent payment. Yeah, and this is how we say we're a family-friendly country, man. You can write off your horse more than you can your kid if you raise an order. Here's another thing I saw. The next slide, Eric. This is about gun stuff. I mean, that's all over here. And there was a neat editorial about guns and how terrorism. I mean, that's every issue is important. That's why I think you have to equate what's more important and why. Like gun deaths for the last 30 years or so. Like 30,000 people a year die from guns. Okay, 30,000 a year. Okay, terrorism deaths. This is what we spend $1 trillion on since 9/11. Terrorism. We spent a couple million, I think, on figure out gun problems. 5,000 in the last 40 years. 5,000 deaths versus 30,000 a year. Or auto deaths. Auto deaths now are about equal gun deaths. So we're figuring out the problem. That used to be 50,000 or 60,000 in auto deaths, about 20, 30 years ago. Well, here's another interesting fact about terrorism stuff. Oh, we're out of it. Why are the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments subject to terrorism in the name of Homeland Security, but the Second Amendment is beyond compromise in the name of saving innocent lives? So in other words, we'll figure with the Constitution for Homeland Security, but we won't touch it, man, if it has to do with my gun. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Mozzie, thank you for your work and inspiring other people. Get out there and do something like he did.
You can do it.
Hey, I'm little Lesko, and I don't know too much about running my own business. I think that might be obvious. Luckily for me, some cities have programs to educate their citizens on how to run their own small business from the government for free. I found just such a program in Cumberland, Maryland, where they offer free business counseling and other services to aspiring entrepreneurs. So I went to check it out.
We've got something free in Cumberland. We have a microenterprise grant available to entrepreneurs, anyone wanting to start a business. We want something that is neighborhood friendly, is going to help the neighborhood survive, to be a more viable community. We probably did 2 or 3 last year, but we're hoping even with this to do even more. So many of the big brands have come in and killed a lot of the mom and pops, and we're trying to bring all that back into the area. Well, usually the number one question when somebody walks through this door is, I want money. How do I get money? And unfortunately, you can't just hand the money over. So you do need to work on. We need to see what your business plans are. I'll make an appointment. You meet with a business counselor, and you just take it from there. She'll give you a little bit of homework to do. You come back, with the little work that you've done, and each time you come in, go over and say, okay, what do we need to work on next? But you're basically just following the steps of a basic business plan template. You can come into the center, you get free business counseling, one-on-one, as little or as much as you like. You can work on the computers while you're here for free. You can use the equipment, the copiers, fax machine, all that is available free to you. You have to look at this business plan as you're going to hand it to somebody that knows absolutely nothing about what type of business you have, what kind of town that you live in. Some people come in every week. Some people come in maybe once a month. Some people come in and they're in and out within 2 weeks. Some people are here hanging out